The man who just wanted a quiet lunch. The air smelled like freshly baked bread and sizzling bacon. Inside a cozy little diner on a quiet street corner in Los Angeles, the morning sun pushed through the windows and spread across the red booths and checkered floors. It was the kind of place where the coffee was always hot and the cook knew your name. The place was called Sunny Spoon Diner. Most people didn't know the secret behind the name. They just came for the pancakes and warm smiles. But this place wasn't owned by some retired chef or a business investor. No, the real owner was someone almost no one would expect. Keanu Reeves. He had bought the diner quietly 5 years ago. No press, no announcements. He had seen it during a late-night motorcycle ride, a little run-down building with a for sale sign and flickering lights. Something about it reminded him of simpler times, before Hollywood, before fame. He wanted a place where people could be real, so he bought it, fixed it up, and gave it life again, but most of the staff never knew who the owner was. They just knew a kind man named Mr. K who dropped by now and then, sometimes to fix a leaky faucet, sometimes to mop the floor, always humble, always kind. On this particular morning, Keanu walked in wearing a gray hoodie and faded jeans. His hair was tied back, his beard a little scruffy. Nobody gave him a second look. That was how he liked it. He stepped up to the counter, smiled at the waitress, and ordered a turkey sandwich, with extra pickles and a cup of black coffee. "Sure thing, hon," the waitress said with a wink. He took a seat by the window. As he waited, he pulled out a small notebook and began to write. It wasn't a script or notes for a role. It was a habit he picked up long ago, writing things he saw, moments he felt. He called it catching time in words. It helped him stay grounded. The diner was slow that morning. Just a few customers, an old couple sharing pancakes, a teenager tapping away on her phone, and 2 cashiers behind the counter chatting as they refilled napkin holders. Keanu didn't pay attention at first. The voices were soft, just background noise to his thoughts. But then something changed. The tone shifted. "Can you believe he's actually thinking of promoting her?" one of the cashiers said. Her voice was sharp, annoyed. "I know, right?" the other replied. "Just because she's nice to the customers, please, she's so fake. I don't know how people don't see it." Keanu's hand stopped mid-sentence. They weren't whispering anymore. "And, you know what really gets me?" the first voice said. "She only got this job because she begged. Total charity case. If I were the owner, I'd get rid of her in a second." Keanu's fingers tightened around his pen. The girl they were talking about. It had to be Julie. Julie had been working at the diner for 3 months. She was barely 20, always smiling, always working the hardest shifts. She never complained, never showed anger, even when customers were rude or when her paycheck barely covered her bus fare. Keanu had noticed her from the first week. There was a sadness in her eyes, hidden beneath the smile. He never asked, never pried, but he had seen her once behind the diner, wiping her eyes and talking softly to someone on the phone. "I'll get you your medicine, Grandma," she had whispered. "I promise." He didn't forget that. Back at the table, Keanu slowly put down his pen. His coffee arrived, and with it the sandwich, but his appetite had vanished. He listened again. "I swear, if she gets that assistant manager spot, I'm quitting," one of the cashiers snapped. "Same. We've been here longer. It's not fair." Keanu closed his notebook. He stood up slowly, left a $20 bill under his coffee cup, and walked toward the counter. The 2 cashiers didn't notice him coming. They were too busy talking until he stopped right in front of them. They looked up, annoyed, then froze. Their eyes widened. Keanu Reeves. No hoodie could hide that face now. The man in front of them wasn't. Just another customer. "Hi," he said gently. "My name's Keanu, but around here I go by Mr. K. I believe we've never formally met." Both women stammered, their mouths opening but no sound coming out. He smiled politely, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "I want to thank you for being honest about your feelings," he continued, "because honesty is important." "But what you said about Julie? That wasn't just unkind. It was cruel." One of them tried to speak, but he raised a hand. I don't usually do this, he said softly. But I'm the owner of this diner, and I care about the people who work here, especially those who show kindness, hard work, and resilience. He leaned in just a little closer. Julie reminds me of someone I used to know, someone who worked 3 jobs, smiled through pain, and helped raise her siblings while their parents were gone. Someone who never had anything handed to her but gave everything to others. I watched Julie every day, not to test her, but because people like her, they matter. The diner had gone quiet. Even the teenager had put down her phone. Keanu looked at the 2 cashiers and said, "You'll finish your shift today. After that, I want you to take the rest of the week off, with pay. I want you to think about what you said and ask yourselves if that's the kind of person you want to be." They nodded slowly, ashamed. Keanu turned and walked toward the back of the diner. He found Julie in the kitchen wiping a plate with her hands shaking. "Did you hear all that?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she whispered. I needed this job." "You still have it," he said softly. "And more than that, you have my respect." Her eyes welled up, and she tried to hold it back. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," he said, smiling for the first time that morning. "Thank you." But what Keanu didn't know then was that this moment, this one conversation, was only the beginning of something much bigger, because someone else had heard the argument. Someone who had been hiding in the back recording it all. And that person had plans that would change Keanu's life. And Julie's. Forever. Whispers behind the wall the morning after Keanu's. Quiet confrontation. The diner felt different. It wasn't just the 2 cashiers who were missing from their posts. There was a tension in the air, a kind of hushed curiosity, like the wind before a storm. Word had spread faster than coffee could brew, about who Mr. K really was. Some of the older staff had suspected for a while, others were in shock. But one thing was clear. Everything had changed. Julie arrived for her shift early, like always. She wore the same black shoes with worn-out soles and carried her little notepad filled with customer names and food allergies. She stepped inside nervously, not sure how the others would treat her now. But instead of whispers or glares, she was greeted with something unexpected. Silence. Then a nod from Chef Ramon. Then a smile from Cassie, the waitress with the purple glasses. Julie blinked. "Morning," Cassie said gently. "Coffee?" Julie nodded. "Yes, please." As Julie poured herself a cup, she felt a presence behind her. She turned. Keanu stood there, not in a hoodie this time, but in a plain black button-down and jeans. Still simple, still humble. "Morning, Julie," he said. "Morning, Mr. K," she replied, then added, "Or, should I call you, still, Mr. K?" he interrupted with a soft smile. "Some things don't need to change." She smiled back. He handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." Inside was a handwritten note. "You are officially promoted to assistant manager, starting today. Thank you for showing us what grace looks like under pressure." Julie gasped. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Keanu said gently. "Just keep being who you are." She nodded, overwhelmed. Tears stung her eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. But as they stood there, something was happening outside the diner. Across the street, behind a darkened car window, a phone screen glowed. Someone sat watching the front door of the diner. The person tapped the screen, scrolling through the video footage from the day before. It was the kitchen helper, Derek. He had been in the back when Keanu called out the 2 cashiers, and without anyone knowing, he had recorded the whole conversation. Not to be sneaky at first, he had planned to show it to Julie to cheer her up. But then he had an idea, a dangerous idea. What if he uploaded it? Not just for Julie, not just for the diner, but for the whole world. He thought of the views, the headlines. Keanu Reeves secretly owns diner. Defends kind waitress against bullying staff. It was too perfect. Too explosive. And maybe, Just maybe. Derek could ride that wave into something bigger for himself, so that morning, while Keanu poured coffee and Julie read her note, Derek sat in his car, uploading the clip to a viral video platform. No description. Just raw footage, a few hashtags, and one sentence. Real heroes don't wear capes. They wear aprons. Then he hit post. Within hours, the video exploded. At first, it was just a few hundred views. Then thousands. By lunchtime, it had passed 1 million. Comments poured in like rain during a storm. This made me cry. Keanu is the kind of man we need more of. Julie deserves the world, but not all the comments were kind. Some people began digging. They found Julie's name, her photos, her school records. Others speculated about the cashiers, trying to find out who they were so they could shame them online. And somewhere between all the likes and shares and reposts, something shifted. The story became less about kindness and more about judgment. Julie only found out when a customer walked in and said, "You're famous." She blinked. What? The video. The one where Keanu defends you. It's everywhere. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone. Hundreds of missed notifications, messages from strangers, interview requests, even threats. Her breath caught. Her whole life. Online. She ran to the back, phone trembling in her hand. Keanu was there, stacking plates. "Did you post it?" she asked, voice tight. He looked confused. "Post what?" "The video. From yesterday." His face changed. "No, I didn't even know someone recorded it." He reached out. "Julie, are you okay?" She stepped back, overwhelmed. "No, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this." He took the phone gently, studied the clip, then the account that posted it. His eyes narrowed. Derek. Keanu walked to the back door of the diner and stepped out into the alley. Derek was on break, leaning against the wall, scrolling through his own posts, smiling at the numbers climbing higher. "Derek," Keanu said calmly. Derek looked up and froze. "Oh, hey, Mr. K." Keanu held out the phone. "Did you post this?" Derek hesitated. Yeah. I thought it would be good for the diner, for Julie, for everyone." Keanu was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You didn't ask her." "No, but you didn't ask me." Derek looked down. "I just wanted people to see something good." "You showed them something private," Keanu said. "Something meant to stay here." Derek's smile faded. "I'm sorry." "I believe you," Keanu replied. "But you've started something you can't undo." Keanu walked back inside. Julie was sitting on a crate, head in her hands. "They found my grandmother's name," she whispered. "They're messaging her." Keanu sat beside her. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't want any of this." No. Can you fix it?" He paused. "I'll try." That night, Keanu made one phone call, then another. Not to lawyers, not to managers, but to someone who owed him a favor, someone in media. "I need your help," Keanu said. "This isn't about me. It's about a young woman who was trying to survive, and now the whole world is looking at her." The voice on the other end of the call said, "I'm listening." Meanwhile, the diner stayed open. But the crowds grew. Tourists came from out of state. People waited in line just to sit in Julie's section. They wanted autographs, selfies, interviews. Some were kind, some were not. Julie smiled through it all, but inside she felt like she was drowning. One day, a man in a suit walked in. He sat at the counter and ordered a coffee. Then he asked to speak with Julie. "Who are you?" she asked. He handed her a card. He was a talent scout for a major media company. He offered her a TV deal, her own segment, a reality show about kindness and hard work. Julie looked stunned. Then she looked at Keanu, who had just stepped in. From the kitchen, their eyes met, and she knew what she had to do. She handed the card back. "Thank you," she said. "But no." The scout blinked. "Why?" She smiled. "Because kindness should be quiet, not sold." He left. Keanu walked over. "You okay?" She nodded. Better than yesterday. But just as things began to calm, another storm was coming. The two cashiers, remember them? They were coming back, not for their jobs, but for revenge, and they weren't alone. The return of the storm, it started with a message, a small, simple email sent to the diner's official inbox late one evening. No name, just a subject line that read, "You think you've seen the end?" Julie read it first. She was cleaning up after close, wiping down the tables, trying to reclaim some sense of normal. The flood of attention had died down a little. A few reporters still lingered outside now and then, but the initial wave of chaos had passed. Or so they thought. She froze when she read the words. She showed it to Keanu, who had just come out of the kitchen, drying his hands with a towel. He read it once, then again. His eyes narrowed, not with fear, but with something colder. "Memory. They're coming back," Julie said quietly. "I know," he replied. 2 days later, the door to the diner swung open at exactly 10 a.m. Megan and Sarah walked in, the same two cashiers who had once stood behind the counter whispering poison about Julie. But they didn't walk in with heads bowed or apologies ready. No, they came in with a camera crew. A man in a blazer and sunglasses followed behind them, adjusting a lapel mic as he grinned at the startled staff. "We're here to film a segment," he announced, "about wrongful termination and viral deception." Keanu stepped forward from the back, his expression unreadable. "We didn't terminate anyone," he said calmly. "They were given paid leave." "We were forced out," Sarah snapped. "Publicly shamed, humiliated. Our faces are all over the internet." "Because of your own words," Julie said, appearing beside Keanu. The cameraman zoomed in on her, catching the look in her eyes. "You made us villains," Megan said. "You turned people against us." Keanu took a step closer. "No one turned anyone against you," he said. "Your actions spoke for themselves." The man in the blazer grinned wider. "That may be true, Mr. Reeves." He emphasized the name, clearly aware of who he was dealing with. But public opinion isn't about truth. It's about perception. And from where we stand, 2 hard-working employees were targeted and ousted because a celebrity got emotional. Keanu said nothing for a long moment. Then he turned to Julie. "Go to the office," he said softly. "You don't need to be here for this." She hesitated but nodded and walked away. Then Keanu looked back at the camera crew. "You want a story?" he said quietly. "I'll give you one." He invited them to sit. He offered them coffee. He let them talk. And when they had said everything they wanted, about how they were treated unfairly, about how Julie manipulated the situation, about how Keanu used his fame to protect her, he asked a single question. "Did you know that Julie's grandmother was hospitalized last week because of the online harassment?" The cameraman blinked. "Did you know that Julie has been paying for her grandmother's insulin out of her own pocket for months? Or that she works double shifts, takes night classes, and still finds time to help her neighbor get to the doctor?" The man in the blazer opened his mouth, but Keanu wasn't finished. "Do you know why she didn't take the TV deal she was offered? Because she didn't want her kindness to become entertainment." Silence. "So tell me," Keanu said softly, "does that sound like someone who manipulates people?" Nobody answered. Megan shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Sarah looked down. Keanu leaned forward. "You can show this footage," he said. "You can twist it. But the truth has a way of coming out. And deep down, you all know what's real." The cameraman slowly lowered his camera. "We should go," he muttered. "Yes," Keanu said. "You should." The crew packed up and left. Megan and Sarah followed, their confidence cracked, their faces pale, but that wasn't the end. That night, Julie sat alone in the diner's office. The lights dimmed, a blanket over her lap. She stared at her phone. One new message. It was from her grandmother. "Thank you for standing tall, sweetheart. I'm proud of you." She smiled through her tears. Keanu knocked gently on the door. "May I?" She nodded. He came in, sat beside her, and handed her a small wrapped box. "What's this?" she asked. "A gift," he said. She opened it, Inside was a bracelet, simple, silver, engraved with a phrase, "Grace in fire." "You've been through a lot," Keanu said, "but you didn't let it change who you are. That's rare." Julie smiled, faintly. "I still feel like I'm in a storm." "Storms pass," he said. "And sometimes they reveal who can still stand when the sky clears." She nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. But just as the calm began to return, another shadow crept closer, not from inside the diner, not from cameras or cashiers, but from Keanu's past. Someone he hadn't seen in years. Someone who once tried to destroy everything he built, and now they were coming back. A face from the past. The morning light filtered through the diner windows, painting soft lines across the tables and chairs. Julie was already inside, preparing the register and checking the coffee machine. The days had begun to feel normal again. Quiet, steady, comforting. Even the media attention had slowly faded, replaced by the usual hum of regulars and their favorite orders. But Keanu wasn't inside yet. He was standing outside in the alley beside the diner, leaning against the brick wall. The cold of the wall pressed against his back, but it wasn't the chill that made him pause. It was the man standing a few feet away. "Been a long time, Reeves," the man said. He wore a suit, expensive and pressed, but his face held a bitterness that not even luxury could hide. Sharp eyes, stiff jaw, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Logan," Keanu said softly. Logan Harper, a name that once meant partnership, trust, and eventually, betrayal. Keanu and Logan had known each other years ago, during one of Keanu's breaks between filming. They had co-invested in a charity project meant to build shelters for struggling families. But while Keanu had poured money and effort into the cause, Logan had secretly funneled funds into private ventures. By the time the truth came out, families had been left homeless, and Keanu's name had been dragged through scandal. He never went public, never exposed Logan. He just paid the damages quietly, rebuilt the shelters with his own hands, and disappeared from that chapter of his life. But Logan hadn't forgotten. "You've done well for yourself," Logan said, nodding toward the diner. "A little humble empire. People love a quiet hero." "What do you want?" Keanu asked calmly. Logan smiled. "A conversation, and maybe a seat at your table again." Keanu didn't answer. Logan stepped closer. "You know what I've realized. Reeves? Forgiveness cells? And redemption? That's worth gold. You and me, back in the spotlight. Not movies, real life. Imagine the headlines. Keanu gives former rival second chance." Keanu stared at him, unmoving. "I'm not interested in headlines," he said. "And I don't run this diner for stories." "No," Logan said, voice turning cold. "You run it for Julie now, right? The poor, sweet girl who's stolen the hearts of millions. You think you can protect her from everything?" Keanu's eyes darkened. "Leave her out of this." Logan chuckled. "Oh, but you see, I can't, because she's part of your story now. And everyone has a price. I just need to find hers." Before Keanu could answer, a door creaked open behind them. Julie stood in the doorway, holding a tray of silverware. Her eyes widened when she saw Logan. "Everything okay?" she asked. Keanu turned slightly. "Go inside, Julie. I'll be there in a minute." She hesitated. Logan gave her a quick, insincere smile. "You must be Julie. I've heard so much about you." "Go," Keanu repeated gently. Julie nodded and stepped back inside. When the door closed, Keanu turned back. "I don't know what you're planning," he said. "But if you come near her again, this time I won't stay quiet." Logan's smile faded. "You think I'm afraid of you?" "No," Keanu said. "But you should be afraid of truth, because it always comes out, even when you hide it behind money and charm." Logan's jaw clenched. Then he turned and walked away. Inside the diner, Julie couldn't shake the feeling. She asked Cassie, the waitress, to cover the front while she stepped into the office. She opened her laptop and began searching. Logan Harper. Article after article appeared. Old ones. Real estate fraud. Charity funds gone missing. Accusations swept under the rug. And then, something new. A recent interview. Logan Harper announces return to philanthropy. Promises to rebuild reputation. Julie's stomach turned. He was trying to use Keanu. Again. She closed the laptop and stood. That evening, Keanu and Julie sat at the back booth, the diner now closed and quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of the ceiling fan above. "Why didn't you tell me?" Julie asked. Keanu looked tired. Not physically. Soul tired. "I thought it was in the past," he said. "I thought he was gone." "He's not." No." Julie leaned forward. "What are you going to do?" Keanu looked out the window. The streetlight cast a soft glow on his face. "Nothing," he said finally. "Not yet." Julie frowned. "But I want to see how far he'll go. Some people dig their own holes. You just have to wait." She was quiet for a moment. Then, she asked, "What if he drags me into it?" Keanu looked at her and his voice softened. "Then he'll learn that this time, you're not alone." The next day, a news van appeared outside the diner. Then another. A new video had surfaced. One showing Julie hugging a crying child who had dropped her food. Nothing scandalous. Actually, something beautiful. But it was being shared like wildfire. And the credit? It was being claimed by a new organization, Harper Hand's Foundation, Logan's Foundation. They had clipped the footage, added a voiceover, and made it look like Julie worked under them. They had blurred the diner name, removed Keanu's presence entirely, and it was working. Donations flooded Logan's site. Praise filled the comments. Julie stood in the office, staring at the screen. "He stole it," she said. "He's using me." Keanu stood beside her. "And now we show the truth." "How?" Keanu pulled out an old envelope. Inside were documents, contracts, proof of the fraud Logan committed years ago. He had kept it, not to blackmail, but to remind himself why silence was sometimes a mistake. "This goes to someone I trust," Keanu said. "Someone who will tell the story right." "But you'll be exposed too," Julie whispered. "People will ask why you never said anything before." Keanu nodded. "Then I'll answer. With honesty. No more hiding." Julie looked at him. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said. "Because protecting you means protecting the truth." She put her hand on his, and in that moment there was no movie. No fame. No diner. Just two people. One trying to rebuild his past, the other trying to survive her present. Outside, the city buzzed with noise and light, but inside, the war for truth had just begun. The truth that burns the next morning began the same as many others. Coffee brewing, bacon sizzling, sun climbing. The sky, but inside the walls of Sunny Spoon Diner, nothing felt normal. Keanu sat in the office with Julie, the sealed envelope between them. It was filled with proof, paper trails, wire transfers, dates, and signatures, showing how Logan Harper had stolen money from people who needed help. Keanu had kept it hidden for years, not to protect Logan, but because he never wanted revenge. But now, it wasn't about revenge. It was about Julie. It was about protecting what was good and honest and kind in the world. "You don't have to do this," Julie said softly. "Yes, I do," Keanu replied. "This time, silence helps the wrong person." He pulled out his phone and called the one person he knew would handle the story with care, Michelle Parks, an investigative journalist he trusted with his life. She was fierce, fair, and unafraid of powerful names. "Michelle, it's Keanu," he said. "I need to see you. Today." By noon, Michelle arrived at the diner. She wore a long coat, carried a notepad, and walked like someone who had been chasing truth her whole life. She greeted Julie with warmth, then followed Keanu into the back office. He handed her the envelope. As she flipped through the documents, her eyebrows raised. "You've had this all this time?" she asked. "Yes," Keanu said. "Why now?" "Because now it's not just about me." Michelle nodded slowly. "This is enough to bring him down," she said. "But once this goes out, the story will be everywhere. And so will you." Keanu looked at Julie. We're ready. 2 days later, the story broke. Celebrity exposes corruption behind rising Harper Hands Foundation exclusive. Stolen footage. Stolen money, stolen credit. Logan Harper's house of lies crumbles. Julie, the girl at the heart of the storm, speaks out with grace. The article was long, detailed, and powerful. Michelle had done her homework. She included quotes from victims of the old shelter project. She added video evidence of Logan's media manipulation. She even included a short interview with Julie, where she spoke with calm honesty. I didn't want attention, Julie had said. I just wanted to do my job, take care of my grandmother, and live with kindness. I still do. The public's response was immediate and overwhelming. Support poured in. People apologized for pushing Julie into the spotlight without her consent. Others donated directly to verified causes she cared about. As for Logan, his foundation collapsed overnight. Sponsors pulled out, donations dried up, and by the end of the week, law enforcement had opened an investigation into financial misconduct. But the fight wasn't over. Logan wasn't the type to vanish quietly. Late one night, Keanu and Julie were closing the diner when a rock smashed through the front window. Glass sprayed the floor. Julie screamed. Keanu pulled her back and rushed to the door, but the street was empty. Just shadows and the sound of a car speeding away. The rock had a note attached. You made me a villain. Now, I'll return the favor. Keanu stared at it, jaw clenched. Julie touched his arm. He's desperate. Yes, Keanu said. And desperate men are dangerous. He called the police and extra patrols were assigned to the diner. They boarded up the broken window and kept going. But inside, Keanu knew this wasn't over. 1 week passed, then 2. The diner slowly returned to normal. Customers came not because of fame, but because of food and family. Julie's grandmother sent a letter from the hospital, saying she was stable and smiling again. Julie read it every night before bed. Keanu, however, stayed cautious. He watched the doors, checked the cameras, waited. And then, one afternoon, he received a letter. No return address, just his name. He opened it carefully. Inside was a photo. It showed Julie walking to the bus stop. Behind her, a shadowy figure, not close, but watching. The message on the back read, I know where she lives. Keanu called Julie immediately and brought her to the diner. She arrived out of breath, confused, scared. You're staying with me now, he said. Just for a while. Julie hesitated. I don't want to be a burden. You're not, he said firmly. You're family. Keanu's home was quiet, filled with books, music, and plants. Julie stayed in the guest room, and for the first time in weeks, she slept without nightmares. They cooked dinner together, talked about favorite childhood memories, and even laughed. Really laughed about how wild the last few months had been. But in the background, the threat still lingered. Then one evening, Keanu checked his camera system. Something had triggered the motion sensor outside his house. He rewound the footage. There, in the shadows, was a figure, tall, lean, wearing a black coat. Logan. He had followed them. Keanu didn't call the police this time. He had something else in mind. The next day he went back to Michelle. I need one more favor, he said. You want to set a trap? She asked. I want to tell the whole story, Keanu said, but I want it to end with truth, not fear. Michelle nodded. I'll bring the cameras. They arranged a meeting at the diner, closed hours. Keanu told Logan through a private channel that he wanted to make peace and talk things out. Logan agreed. He couldn't resist the opportunity to reclaim the narrative. He walked into the diner with his usual swagger, wearing confidence like armor, but this time, the cameras were rolling. Michelle stood off to the side, and Julie remained behind the kitchen wall listening. Why did you come back? Keanu asked. Logan shrugged. You humiliated me. I had to respond. You manipulated people. And you didn't? Logan shot back. You let everyone think you were just some quiet diner owner. You used your fame to control the story. Keanu, didn't flinch. "The difference is I never lied," he said, "and I never used a young woman's pain to build an empire." Logan laughed coldly. "You think you're better than me?" "No," Keanu said. "I just stopped pretending." And then Michelle stepped out, camera pointed directly at Logan. "We've been live for the last 5 minutes," she said. "Congratulations. The world just heard everything." Logan's face went pale. He spun toward the door, but 2 officers were waiting. They had watched the live stream too. Logan was arrested for fraud, harassment, and intimidation. That night, Keanu and Julie stood outside the diner beneath the stars. The lights were off. The streets were quiet. "It's over," Julie said softly. "For now," Keanu replied. "But life always brings new battles." She looked up at him. "Then I'm glad you're in mine." He smiled. "You were never alone." In the distance, sirens faded, and inside the diner a small neon sign glowed softly in the window. "Open heart, open hands." A light that never fades. A month passed. The sun rose every morning over Sunny Spoon Diner, spilling golden light across the checkered floors and red vinyl booths. The broken window had been replaced. The media vans had long since driven away, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the diner felt like home again. Not just for Keanu and Julie, but for everyone who walked through the door. Julie stood at the counter, tying her apron, her eyes softer now, more certain. The weight she used to carry behind her smile had lightened. She greeted customers by name, remembered their orders, and made them feel seen. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to, the way she always had. Keanu walked in a few minutes later, coffee in hand, nodding to Cassie and Ramon as he passed. "You're late?" Julie teased, a small grin on her lips. "I had a meeting," Keanu replied. "With who?" He placed a folder on the counter. "City Council," he said. "They're giving us the green light." Julie blinked. "For what?" He opened the folder and showed her the papers inside. Blueprints. Not for a second diner, but for a shelter. Real one. A new building in the heart of the city, fully funded and maintained by Sunny Spoon and a few private donations. A place where struggling families, single parents, and runaway teens could find help. Food, counseling, job resources. Hope. Julie stared at the plans, her hands trembling. "This was your dream, wasn't it?" she asked. Keanu nodded slowly. "For a long time, but I didn't know how to start again. Not until I met you." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "You made me believe in good again," he said gently. "In what's possible. In people. You never stopped believing," she whispered. "You just needed someone to remind you." They stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by the soft clinking of silverware and low chatter of the morning rush. Then Julie asked, "Can I help?" "You're running the place," Keanu said with a smile. "It's yours as much as mine." Weeks later, the foundation was laid, not just for the shelter, but for something bigger, something real. Julie gave speeches at schools, sharing her story, not for fame, but to show others they weren't alone. She told the truth, gently but honestly, about kindness, about standing tall, about how even the quietest voices mattered. Keanu joined her sometimes, but mostly he stayed behind the scenes, fixing leaky pipes, helping the cook, paying the bills, without anyone noticing. Just like always. People came from far away now, not because Keanu was famous, but because Sunny Spoon felt like the kind of place where your soul could sit down and rest. One rainy afternoon, a woman came in, soaking wet, carrying a crying child. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't have money, but—" Julie stood from her booth before she could finish. "Sit," she said gently. "We'll bring you food, and coffee, and something dry for the little one." The woman burst into tears as Julie walked toward the kitchen. Keanu stepped beside her, holding a towel and 2 mugs. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, wiping her eyes. This is why we built this." "No," Keanu said. This is why you stayed when things got hard. This is why you matter. She smiled and handed him one of the mugs. Thank you, she whispered. He looked at her, eyes warm. Thank you. Outside, the rain kept falling. But inside Sunny Spoon Diner, it was warm. Safe. Bright. Julie looked around. At the woman and her child. At the cook humming in the back. At the regulars laughing over pancakes. At Keanu wiping a table with his sleeves rolled up. She realized something then. Sometimes the loudest impact came from the quietest actions. Sometimes the people who healed others didn't stand on stages or speak into microphones. They stood behind counters, served sandwiches, and made the world a little softer. One act of kindness at a time. And as Julie placed a fresh plate of food in front of the mother, she caught Keanu watching her from across the diner. He raised his cup. She raised hers. No words, just a knowing smile. Because they both understood. Some storms don't come to destroy you. They come to clear the path.